Hello and welcome to DigiPod on DawnNews English. I'm your host, Usama Khilji. Today, we're discussing a crisis that affects ordinary Pakistanis every day: cyber scams. And from fake bank calls and OTP fraud to spoofed numbers, leaked personal data, and online financial deception, these scams are growing alongside Pakistan's digital economy. So, to unpack how these networks operate, why victims keep falling through the cracks, and what needs to change in law, regulation, and public awareness, I'm joined by journalist and researcher Sindhu Abbasi, whose reporting has closely examined Pakistan's web of cybercrime. So, thank you very much for joining us, Sindhu. We're glad to have you back on the podcast. So, firstly, in your reporting, one of the most striking things is that scammers often already know a victim's bank, CNIC details, or even family information. So, how central is stolen or leaked data to the whole economy of cyber scams in Pakistan?
Hi, Osama. Thank you for having me. So, this theft of data has been happening in Pakistan over 10, 15 years. And these scams, specifically these banking scams where, people call you and they know your bank and they know your name, full name, and even the account number sometimes. This is definitely related to the fact that there has been data dumps, Pakistani's Nagra data within Pakistan, and then there was reporting on how a lot of bank details were posted on the dark web over the past decade. So this has been happening, over 10 years. I did this piece in I think 2018 and 2019. Then people were getting calls from these scammers. They were like, we are from the army, and your account has been found to be involved in some kind of terrorist activity, and we want to ensure, check the details, and also they'll ask the password and use it. And one of the things that stood out for me whenever I was like talking to people who got these calls was how scared Pakistanis were. Generally, if scams happen all around the world, but you have to be very smart as a scammer. You need to like look for patterns, look for in real life if you're doing these kind of scams. But in Pakistan, the main way that scammers were getting to people was threatening them and was trying and banking on their fear of authority. So that was something that stood out for me. And people would obviously get spooked if you're getting a call from the army. And then what I noticed was the more I would like keep tracking it, every 3 years or even 2, 3, 4 years, they would change. Their tactics, because by then the authorities were also had started
Mm,
talking about it. People had started talking about it. So then everybody knew that if you're going to get a call, it's scam. So every 3, 4 years it would change. The definitely the reason for this kind of what looks like for sure organized. I think that these are networks. FIA told me so, but where are these networks and what exactly, how exactly are they able to do this so freely? And I think my reading of this is that, even if they get caught, maybe they get bails and then they, lay low for some time and they change their networks. So they're able to, continue doing this.
Thanks, Sindhu. And in your reporting, you've also shown that these scams are not just random calls by isolated fraudsters. And like you mentioned, they're often part of organized networks. So that may involve SIM sellers, maybe people in, telecom operators, franchise operators, and in some cases, banking insiders as well. So can you speak a bit to like, the overall structure of this scamming ecosystem? And perhaps, do you think there's involvement of law enforcement as well?
So I think where it started from was the Nagra data dumps on the internet, and also the FIA did arrest a lot of people within Nagra. right? So and FIA officials would tell me that there are networks, if there are criminals, and then they're in contact with other people, and then there are people within banks. So a lot of like bank employees were also arrested,
Mm.
and so there definitely does seem to be a network, where all of these people are involved. Maybe NASA supplies your family tree or NASA data, and then the banker would supply your financial information, your bank accounts, and the criminal would do whatever you're calling you. So I definitely think that there's this network, and this is what the FIA would tell us as well. Within telecom companies as well, there were leaks of actual number lists. So they were dumped, they were posted on the internet, or they were sold. This is what I wrote in my piece when I did for the Dawn in 2018 or 2019. Somebody told me in the tech industry that there were definitely reports within these telecom companies, their employees were, dumping these data or selling it. So a lot is happening, but I think the main question that you keep asking yourself is why is that even if arrests are happening, you do see, and the FIA claims that we arrested these people. Why is that it keeps on happening? And I
Mm.
think it's happening on the same scale. Sometimes it just it comes back. You see this kind of wave. Like for example, recently I had posted on LinkedIn that there's a parcel scam going on, and so everybody now, like whatever people are being scammed. I hear that it's parcel scam. We have your parcel and you need to tell us a code that you received on WhatsApp. But that's like a way to hack your WhatsApp. So
Mm.
I think that this is something that I definitely have wondered why, if the FIA is taking action, why is that we keep seeing this? One of Only one person in the FIA claimed that apparently these people, so most of them are based in Punjab, apparently, and they were petty criminals, and then they formed these organized groups, and then they definitely have connections, and they would get tipped off when we were
Mm.
about to raid. I mean, that's what the FIA claimed. With the FIA, you have to also be a bit careful about what they say and verify that too. But yeah, that's what they said. But when it comes to like lawmakers and whether anyone in the government has said something about it, anyone actual, has there been any proper policy making about this? We have not seen this. In the past couple of years, there have been some reforms, like, for example, bankings, you must have also seen. Now they do include, when you call a bank helpline, you will, they have these, recordings that don't give out your PIN and apps as well. And the PTA also sometimes posts about it, general
And they're getting
messaging
more
about
sophisticated. I got text messages from a short code saying, "Oh, there's been, we're from the traffic department, and there's a challan waiting for you." So the website looked sketchy because it ended not with .com.pk, which would be an official website, but it ended with .xyz. Right. So what I did was, just to check, I opened the website on another device, not my own device, on a device nobody was logged in on. And I went to the website and I was like, okay, let's see, maybe I did get a challan, because I'm getting it from this short code that I've gotten messages from many years back. So I open it and it said, "Oh, there's a seatbelt violation and the fine is 500 rupees." And I was like, "Acha, that's quite less." And then the only way to pay for it was credit card. And that's when I was like,
wow,
okay, none of this adds up. Because in Pakistani, in Pakistan, your fines are not through credit card. So it's probably a phishing scam to get people's credit or debit card information, right? And you've spoken about how these scams succeed through fear and urgency, right? Where you spoke about someone pretending to be from the military, from the army, or a traffic challan, or like a parcel that you've ordered. So and there's also threats to block, bank accounts, for example, or people losing their money, right? In which, and especially elderly people with their savings, etc. So, kidnapping claims, right? Fake money prizes or pressure to share an OTP that you spoke about. So, it seems like social engineering is proving very effective. In getting people to, like, feel this sense of urgency and give up their information. Why do you think this is so effective in Pakistan right now, despite all the warnings that banks are giving?
Yeah. Um, so when I talked to people for my story, all of them said that they knew, like while they were talking, uh, during that call, they knew it's a scam. One person, or at least, told me who gave them the code, and his, I think, 25K was stolen out of his account. So he was like, I was about to sit an exam. He was like 19, and so most of them said that we knew, but something about it, like just we were a bit scared, or we were not paying
Mm,
attention, and so that kind of led to, believing or even not believing the person, but just like agreeing with him and giving out your code. And I think so. Fear is definitely the motivation, for people to not the motivation, but probably the main reason why so many people are scared when they get calls from these scammers pretending to be from the army or the central bank, or their bank. But also, I was thinking about how a common Pakistani, obviously you're very busy, you have like other issues going on, you have a busy day, Karachiites, or I don't know, in Lahore, or even smaller cities, and you're going about your day, and then you get a call from, someone pretending to be, all serious, pretending to be from your bank. And maybe at that particular moment, you're not paying a lot of attention, right? And so people don't have that presence of mind, maybe, and then they give out the code, and then they realize fraud. But even in other cases, like this recent parcel case, one of my friend's colleagues, what happened was that somebody called her, and they were like, "Hey, give us your code," and so there was no urgency or anything. But still, she didn't think much about it, and she gave the code. So I just want to emphasize here that it's called a code for a reason, right? You're not supposed
mm,
to give out you're not supposed to give out code. And do remember that if somebody, even if the bank calls you, even if the state bank calls you, or any authority calls you, they're not going to really threaten you with blocking your account. That's not going to happen. Right. So, and then there are ways to verify it. Maybe you can cut the call and then check the number and then go on the website. One of the things that government websites, one of the very, very common thing that I do is that recently, a week or so back, I got this call from a Lahore PTCL number, and they knew my obviously they called my number, so they knew what my phone network is. And they were like, hey, we are working with your phone network to bring you health services, which obviously sounds outlandish because I have never heard of such a thing, and what even. So what I did was I put that number on Google and I wrote scam or something like that, and 3 4 entries on the internet, on Google came up. So apparently this is the thing. So this is also something that you can do. That if you're worried, and if you're scared, which is fine, but just don't give out the code. Cut the call and go on the web, go on Google, and just like simply Google. You'll see that other people have been scammed.
So, Sindhu, we'll talk a bit about the legal ecosystem that should be protecting, citizens from such scams. So, you've spoken about data being leaked. You've spoken about also how, any remedies for it. And you've also spoken about data governance, how, the cyber security of a lot of the public infrastructure is also weak. We live in a country where we have, public digital ID infrastructure in which everything's centralized with another a database system. So, what are the laws that sort of exist that can sort of protect people, and what laws or governance is missing in all of this?
So we have PICA, which is the cybercrime law, which has clauses about data being misused. For example, for if your picture is misused or morphed and then used to harass you, you can file a case under PICA. And then there are scenarios, but we don't have a data protection. Like for example, in the EU and in other countries as well, some states in the US as well, which basically what the data protection bill would do is actually define what personal data is, define how all the state itself, and then the private companies, and then international companies, whatever and whoever uses your data, how they're supposed to store it, how they're supposed to um, secure it, and also not sell it to third parties. And if they are selling it to third parties, then the consent is required. For example, there's certain clauses in the EU law which are about consent, and especially surrounding children's privacy, but also an adult user. So none of this is we haven't seen any concrete progress on data protection law. We do keep hearing that we'll get it. It's been, apparently for 10 years, governments have been working on it, but we don't see it happening. And my reading of this is, and which is what I wrote in a 2024 piece in Dawn as well, is that the state doesn't want that because, we live in a security state which wants to surveil us all the time and wants, our wants unfettered access to our data. And not that a piece of legislation is going to stop them, but still, if there is a law, maybe there will be petitions, maybe the courts can give out some judgments that can impede the state's desire and their plans to surveil and all these surveillance tech that they've also used. But the serious consequences for a common person is that if you go to a store, if you use maybe an online store, uh, shopping store, you don't have any control over your data. I went to a very big, a pretty big, like big shoe store recently, and they were like, we can't make a purchase unless you give your cell number. And I was like, I don't want to give my cell number because it is connected to my CNIC, it is connected to my bank account. And, it's just not a good idea to just be giving it to random stores just for marketing purposes. So what a data protection bill would do, apart from, many other provisions, is also um, give the right back to a user about their own data,
Yeah,
right?
access to remedy, right? You
Yeah.
can get
Just
damages
because,
if.
yeah, this idea that just because you're using internet services and just because you're
Hmm.
putting out your data on the internet, right? We've dealt with this for 10 years now. Even as a woman, people have this idea if you're putting up pictures, they'd be like, why did you put your pictures? And that's the same with data. So
Hmm.
we need a data protection law, and then at the government level, they need to really do regular audits of NADRA and make sure that their privacy is, up to date, not just in terms of computer security, but also the people working there, because they were the ones who were dumping the data. So are there any steps that the organization has taken to ensure that nobody can take a picture, their employees can't take a picture of the family trees, and so on. And I would also like to talk about this, the safe cities,
Hmm.
that we absolutely love to flaunt. These CCTV cameras, they have facial recognition, and if there are systems that connect them to our other data or NADRA data, that can be really dangerous. Because if they are hacked, like in
Absolutely.
Iran, I don't know if you read the
Yeah.
story, they hacked into Iran's CCTV cameras, and what Iran did was that they had connected it to the CCTV's system to their other databases, right? So anyone who can get into the camera, they'll be able to very easily also get to the database. So this is not just privacy on an individual level. At the end of the day, this is
So the
also about your
CCTV
national
cameras,
security.
exactly, right? So they became a national security threat for Iran, and similarly, they can be a national security threat for any country, including ours. I think that's a very, very important point, right? Because we're told that this is for our safety, but this could just be used against us. Especially as you know, Sindhu, you've reported extensively on when there's a lack of security of public data, right? And all of that is linked, then the vulnerabilities really increase. And these cyber scams show us that because bad actors are able to exploit any vulnerabilities in our data governance systems, and then the common citizen is suffering because of that. Sindhu, we've spoke about the state side, but let's talk a bit about your common citizens. What are some tips that you would give to people to avoid getting scammed?
So, of course, we need to hold the state and the government accountable and ask them that they pass a data protection law. But since scams are so common, I would also like to first maybe share a list of common scams that happen in Pakistan and they're happening, and then I will get to how to avoid them and not fall for these scams. Whether you're scared or whether somebody is trying to say things like, "Oh, I'm poor, and my money, my easy pesa money was sent to you mistakenly." So those kinds of cases have also happened. So yeah, recently there are parcel scams going on. So a person will call you and they'll be like, "You have a parcel and you need to share a code you received on WhatsApp to verify." So don't share that code. It's a way to hack your WhatsApp. So some criminals even arrived at the doorstep, according to investigation agencies, and took people's fingerprints or CNIC to later use to hack into bank apps. So if you didn't order a parcel, be extra careful. Traffic challenge, as you said, or any kind of government tax. So I think that one of the ways to really tell that this is fake is that usually, I would say most of the times, government texts or challans would not have links necessarily, right? So if there is a link, you should know that this is like phishing attempt. Now, do not click on the link, and if you're worried and if you want to find out if indeed you do have a challenge, just go on the proper government portal. Just Google it, really. Um, and another one is, your WhatsApp contact out of the blue texts you asking for financial help. Most likely their WhatsApp is hacked, so don't send them money. Wait for them to find out their WhatsApp is hacked, and then you find out it was hacked. Easy
Call
Pesa
them and
scam.
check.
Yeah. Easy Pesa scam is that somebody says that, "Oh, I went to Easy Pesa outlet and they mistakenly sent my money to you, and I'm very poor and I need the
Mm,
money, and you could have gotten the code and share that code." So do not share the code. It's a way to get into your Easy Pesa app or even a bank. So sometimes what happens, as you said that you were getting texts, I think, from codes. So I've also received, and I think other people have also received some calls from these 4, 5 digit codes. So what happens is, and I Googled it because, I tried to track all the scams happening. Um, what happened was that what happens is that the scammers will use your number, your cell number in their device or whatever tech they're using, and they will put the call option to verify on WhatsApp, right? So there's a call option as well, text or call. And so you will get a call. And if you pick it up, you can get, right? Because you
mm.
don't know that it's a verifying call, but yeah. So be cautious about, if you are getting a call from those like 4, 5 digit codes, I think you should be careful. And again, what I do is I just go and Google. And I think the most basic, I would say, internet safety hygiene, the most basic thing you can do really is do not click on random links,
Yeah.
whether on texts, whether on WhatsApp, anywhere on the internet. Just don't
Email.
email, yeah. Even sometimes, even if they are from a trusted contact or on a WhatsApp, just take like 5 seconds really to see if the link looks a bit suspicious. Phishing is still the most common way people get hacked.
And these
So yeah,
happen on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok Messenger also, right?
any
Any click
any
that you get.
any yeah, any app. So don't click on links. I mean, don't let your curiosity get the best of you. I think people are very curious, oh, like what's happening, but what is this link? And I know I've been curious, but don't click on it. And then how to avoid it, right? As I said that when you get it, but when you get a call, just remember that authorities will not call you to threaten you about blocking your account or anything. And if you are scared, just cut the call and just go on Google and search, and you'll see there are other people also who got the same call and they are being scammed.
Or you
On the
can call
app,
the helpline of your bank, right?
yeah,
Yourself to
yeah,
check.
yeah, yeah, that's absolutely. So on the app level, what you can do, or the safety security level, what you can do is that on WhatsApp, definitely set up a two-factor authentication method, which is very easy. You just have to enter a code. Do remember that code, obviously, but it's very easy. So what how it will help you is that even if somebody tries the method where like I said, you might get a call or somebody is trying to hack your WhatsApp by putting your number into their phone. But even if they try to log into it, WhatsApp will prompt them to enter the code that you use for the two-factor authentication. Only you know that code, so they won't be able to. Even if for example, you pick the call and other ways they use. So this is to hack you. So this is very important, and do it for your WhatsApp. For Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, use Authenticator app, which you can download from your app stores. This is important because it is on your phone, right? So there is no like external email or SMS which can also be hacked. There are ways. I won't go into the technical details of how SMS codes can also be seen by these scammers. But what authenticator apps will do is they're on your phone, right? So you get a code every time, and nobody can hack you. So simply download that from your app stores. Very easy. Uh, what's also important, I think, is that again, you have to remember this is your data. You don't have to know. You're not nobody. The law doesn't mandate that you just give out your CNIC or your cell number randomly to shops or stores or
You
So if
don't owe
even
it
if
to
some
anyone.
you
Yeah.
don't owe it to anyone. So if the store says that, oh, we can't make a purchase, just either tell them that there's no way you're going to give your cell number to them, and if they just refuse, just walk away. It's okay. Like you don't want your data out there.
You're already
And
giving
then
them money.
yeah. So also, there's also a lot of job scams going on. You get texts. But I think people are able to tell because the grammar is like really bad, and it's very random. So you have to be again links. Links, I think, if there are links in the text, most likely that's phishing. Um, Also, there are web forms like, maybe an online job form, or even like other forms when you're applying to like fellowships or any other kind of things. Um, just make sure that if you're applying to a job and there's a web form which asks for your CNIC or a lot of like personal details, make sure that the organization is legit, the form looks legit, check the website. Yeah. And
And the
then,
same happens when people are applying for visas. I just found out what some scammers had done is on Google Maps in Islamabad, they had changed the phone numbers of all the embassies. So people who
oh,
wanted to apply for a visa would call that phone number of Google Maps and they'd be like, yes, send us this much money and we'll get you an appointment and everything. And people are sending them money. People are showing up with embassies saying, here, we paid you this much. Where's our visa? And the embassies are saying, we never got this call or took money from you.
yeah.
So that's another way. So even like phone numbers that you see on Google Maps sometimes could not be authentic. So make sure that you're not giving away money to people just over the phone. You should, verify those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that it seems like extra work, and it seems like, oh, the internet was supposed to make things easier in your life, but it seems that now you're just supposed to be vigilant all the time. And it can be annoying for some people, but we have to understand that, well, the internet is a reality. We do live in a connected world, and our data is out there. So 5, 10 seconds of just being careful, and when you go on the internet, just be a little cautious. Just take like 5 seconds to verify things.
And
Um,
Sindhu, lastly, very importantly, could you tell our listeners, how do people report this? All these scams that are happening to that.
so previously, as we know, it was the FIA which used to investigate cybercrime. Now it is the NCCIA. You can just type in NCCIA Pakistan,
The
the
National
website.
Cybercrime Investigation Agency, right?
Yep. Yep. So on their front page, on the main page, they have report cybercrime tab, and when you click on it, they'll ask you some details, like fill in the form and whatever. If you've been getting scam messages from certain numbers, or maybe on your social media, just copy paste that, or just write that, and do include the data and report that. Definitely report that. Yeah. And also, you can do that with PTA as well. PTA has some portals or some numbers. You can look that up. It's very easy. So, especially if something is very recurrent, you should definitely report it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Sindhu, for all your work and for sharing, all of this information that you have with people so that we can be protected from cyber crimes. But very importantly, our data governance system needs a lot of improvement. So data protection law in an age where everything is going online means all our data is online and it is very vulnerable. So we do need a legal regime that protects us. So for the parliament to legislate a rights respecting data protection law is very, very important. And at the same time, strengthening the cybersecurity of all our digital public infrastructure, especially that of NADRA and telecom companies and banking, is very, very important. And to have systems within these organizations that punish those, hold accountable those people who are deliberately leaking or selling this data of citizens is also very important. And then, of course, awareness with the public around how scams work, such as what we have done in this conversation with Sindhu. As on a larger scale from the government is also super important so that people stop falling for these scams and stop losing money that they have, worked very hard for to save all their life. So that's it from today. We'll be back with another episode next week. I'm your host, Usama Khilji, signing out.